Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream are made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Robert Conrad, Cleveland State University, the Chautauqua Institution, the Cleveland Clinic, and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good? Awesome. All right, here we go. That's great. All right, take two. Hi guys, I'm Justin Tinker. I serve as Vice Chair of the Youth Forum Council, and I want to welcome you guys all to today's forum. And so this forum is about missing faces in politics. Currently, millennials make up 83.1 million Americans, exceeding the 75.4 million baby boomers, representing more than a quarter of the nation's population. Approximately 44% of millennials are part of a minority race or an ethnic group, creating the largest and most diverse segment of the population. Therefore, as millennials age, their influence on elections should grow. However, there is a lack of vote coming from millennials. Contrast this with the one group that has been voting, African Americans. In Alabama's recent special election, African Americans made up 25% of the population, but were 30% of the vote, potentially being the deciding factor in that special election. Despite the changing demographics of voters, these leading American politics have not diversified. The average age of elected officials in federal government has fluctuated between 53 and 63 years of age since 1945. 71% of elected officials are men, 90% are white, and 65% are white men. In fact, white men have 8 times as much political power as African American women. This trend is evident in Ohio, as 39% of the population consists of white men, yet they comprise 67% of elected officials. This phenomenon isn't just limited to race and gender. Other identities are underrepresented in American politics, including representatives of the LGBTQ+ community, although their numbers have been increasing in recent years. When Tina Smith of Minnesota was sworn into office earlier this month, there is now a record-breaking 22 women serving in the US Senate. However, the government is still not fully reflective of the American people. Our panelists today are here to share their stories and how young people, women of color, and other underrepresented groups can be empowered to enter the political arena. Allow me to introduce our panelists. First, Nikki J. Antonio is serving her 4th term as state representative for Ohio District 13. She is minority whip, previous chair of the Ohio Democratic Women's Caucus, state director for the Women's Legislators Lobby. She is a former special education teacher and nonprofit executive director, and remains committed to social justice advocacy and activity. Next, Annette Blackwell is the 16th mayor of Maple Heights and the first female and first African-American woman in the city's 100-year history. Mayor Blackwell is a small business owner and currently serves as the executive boards, on the executive boards of Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, Cuyahoga County's Mayors and City Managers Association, and the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency. Shontel Brown is the County Council Representative for District 9, previously serving on the Warrensville Heights City Council. In August, Representative Brown was elected to be the first African-American woman and first female leader of the Cuyahoga County Democrats. She is committed to advocating for seniors and youth in health and human services that integrate economic development and job opportunities. And finally, Tiffany Roberts is the president of Turning Point USA's chapter at Cleveland State University. She's a sophomore studying promotional communication with a minor in marketing. Here to guide our discussion is senior and Youth Forum Council member Millen Jane. Thank you.
Hello, fantastic. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us today for our first panel of the new year. My name is Millen Jane. I'm a senior at Solon High School, and before we start today's discussion, I just want to tell you a bit more about my personal background. So by a show of hands, how many of you were in downtown Cleveland throughout the summer of 2016, either visiting or just living? It's good to see quite a few of you. So that summer, I was interning at a marketing firm in downtown Cleveland, and everything was just teeming there. It was so vibrant with events like the Republican National Convention or the NBA Finals. The ambiance was just unparalleled, I feel, for our region. So one day that summer, I was in a coffee shop, and in that one normal, ordinary coffee shop, I experienced something that will probably stick with me for the rest of my life. You know, on the news every day, we see things of harmful nature that are just taking place based on hatred, based on crime. That's just, you know, there's really no cause for it except intuition, what we personally feel. And I'm not going to dive into what the event actually was and what happened, what I witnessed, but I will say that it's something that you see on headlines, but seeing it 5 feet in front of you is something that can really change the way you look at life. So in today's panel, I really implore you guys to all pay attention to all these strong and accomplished women, because they've been through areas that they've had to walk through themselves, they've had to break through the ceiling themselves. And just seeing the diversity that this crowd brings, or this panel brings, is something that's going to be unparalleled for all of us. So without further ado, panelists, please introduce yourselves.
I'm Tiffany Roberts. I go to Cleveland State University. I am the president and campus coordinator of Turning Point USA. If you've never heard of it, it's a conservative organization on campus. It's nonpartisan. We promote smaller government, lower taxes, and free speech. And mainly on campus, I try to recruit members, and we also host a lot of speaker events and things like that. I'm originally from New York. I just came in at 7 o'clock in the morning this morning, so my train was very delayed. It was a 13-hour ride, but I'm here. But I just kind of got into politics last semester, and I honestly didn't even know I was interested in it until I found Turning Point, and now I'm running the whole thing. We're having a ton of events this semester, and I love it, so.
Thank you. I guess it's a perfect segue to what she's doing at Cleveland State, but I'm Mayor Blackwell. I'm the mayor of Maple Heights. I'm very happy to see so many Maple Heights people here. These two tables are actually Maple Heights students from their National Honor Society. I also have my city engineers here today and a dear friend from a local church in Maple Heights. This is how I won. The 16th mayor of Maple Heights, first African American, first woman in 100 years. This had been historically an Italian, Hungarian, and Polish city. So it was a difficult win. I come from a business background, spent 16 years at an accounting firm, Deloitte & Touche, as a property tax analyst, did not sit on city council, was not economic development, thought I'd run because I didn't like what I saw. When the city changes, the demographics changes, so does the standard of living, the quality of life, the wealth. As a middle-aged woman with 3 kids, a daughter in college, I love my house. I didn't want to move. And so I wanted to become a part of the solution. It's very easy to talk about what's wrong with the city. And I'm going to say something very bluntly. I was not okay with another ghetto. And that was what many were saying, that Maple Heights was the next ghetto. And I said, not under my watch. And for that reason, I won with the support of many of the children's parents that stood by me. So I worked in the school for 4 years as the Parent Academy Coordinator, working with parents to increase parent confidence and effective building in a program called Parent Academy. I worked on the school levy, and I'm a small business owner in Maple Heights. I'm truly invested, I'm truly blessed, and I'm very, very supported, and you can see that by the people that are here, as well as the faith community in Maple Heights. Almost every church in Maple Heights got me to come and talk, and the congregations went to the polls, and I won overwhelmingly with 68.2% of the votes, first time ever running for mayor. Thank you for having me today.
Well, yes. My name is Shontel Brown. I am currently the Cuyahoga County representative for District 9. I serve 10 communities in Cuyahoga County. I am also recently elected the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party chair, and the first in 200 years. And it was also a historic election, one that I'm truly grateful to serve in this position. I say I sit in the seat of gratitude. It is a position that affords me the opportunity to meet lots of people, to help shape policy, both seats actually, and to impact a number of people's lives. My journey is not different, a lot different from the ladies that have already spoke. I did not know that politics was in my future. I didn't know that it was something that I would ultimately end up doing. And so I, like Mayor Blackwell, saw a decline in my community, and I wanted to know, how can I be a change? How can I be effective? And so there's a saying, be the change you seek. And so I did just that. I started getting involved with the city council meetings, attending those meetings, and building relationships with the administration, who said to me, Shontel, while you're out there, if you need some help, give us a call. And I took them at their word. And when I introduced myself to my neighbors and said, hey, I want to be your councilwoman, they said, well, Shontel, what about this sewer? What about this tree that's been hanging? Is there anything you can do about that? And so with having built those relationships in my community by going to the city council meetings, I used those business cards. I took pictures of the problems that the people were speaking about. I CC'd them in the correspondence, and things got done, and I hadn't even been elected. And so that news traveled fast. And election day came, and the polls closed, and I actually was down by 6 votes, and I thought I lost. And so this speaks to the fact every vote counts. When the polls close, down by 6, but what I didn't know, there's a process, provisional ballots. And provisional ballots are only counted if necessary. There were 3 of us in the race. There were 23 ballots. That could easily change a 6-way difference. And so after the provisional ballots were counted, I ended up winning by 7 votes. And much like Mayor Blackwell, a woman of faith, 7 represents perfection, completion, and God. And so that to me was a divine message that said, okay, this must be for you. So I just continue to work hard, build those relationships, and over the course of time, that has just proven to be a successful formula that has afforded me the privilege again to sit here before you as both a county council representative and the first African American and woman to be the chair of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party.
My name is Nikki Antonio. I'm the state representative for Ohio House District 13, which encompasses Lakewood and the west side of Cleveland. I have been the minority whip. Before that, I was the assistant whip, which is a leadership position within the caucus. When one serves in that capacity, one serves as the whip for the entire General Assembly. I too am the first person from the LGBTQ community to ever be elected to the General Assembly in its 138-year history. And so that election was held in 2010. Before that, I was the first person to win city council seat in Lakewood when I ran and won in 2005. So I served there for 5 years. I'm in my 8th year in the General Assembly. And I too, we have a general theme here. The theme is I was interested in my community being better for my children. My partner and I have 2 daughters. And so we volunteered on committees. And when the schools had a levy campaign, I went out and joined the Speakers Bureau because I wanted the schools to be the best they could be for my children and for everyone in the community. At the time, I didn't really think about running as a candidate or serving in political office, but I found myself coming home from city council meetings saying, you know, I'm really tired of explaining what the reality is in our city. I could do that job. And I heard myself say, I could do that job. And so eventually I ran and won and did that job. And I was very proud of the constituency services that we provided, really being on the ground in the community, talking to people, listening. From my city council days, one of the things I'm very proud of is that we passed an ordinance for sidewalk dining. Now, you would think that that's a no-brainer, and any of you have ever been to Lakewood, you know there's a lot of outdoor dining in the city. It's because we changed the law to encourage it. And it was one of the things that I learned was sometimes we had a building department where we called the guy who was in charge there Dr. No, because every time somebody said, can I do anything, he said no. We worked to make it a place that was open and welcoming. In this case, it was for sidewalk dining. As I've worked in the legislature, what I've tried to do is continue to make Ohio a state that is open and welcoming to all people, regardless of their sexual orientation, their gender identity, because that's good for business, it's good for our economic growth, and it's also the right thing to do in 2018. And so I have introduced legislation. I continue to introduce legislation in order to do that. My partner and I have 2 daughters, as I've said. My children were probably part of the real motivation for me to continue in this work. And when you find yourself in a time, in a position, and you say, there's two things that happen. Somebody should do this. How many of you have heard somebody say that? Somebody should do this. Or even you've heard yourself say, somebody should fix that. What I learned, what all of us have learned, is that somebody could very well be me, be you. And that makes a difference. That made the difference in why I ran. It makes the difference for why I do this work today.
We are truly blessed to have you guys in our Cleveland community. So as community builders, one round of applause, please, everyone. So our first question of the day is, what do you believe are some of the primary factors that account for the disparity of minority participation in our current system?
I'll jump in. Well, the things that I think serve as barriers for minority participation is that it speaks to Representative Antonio, making it inviting. I think also what you guys are doing right now is entertaining the idea at an early age and making it something that is important to you, a priority in your life. I think politics is involved in everything, but we don't necessarily see it that way. From being able to come in this room and eat the food that's on our table, it's regulated by the federal government, that what comes in and how it's made and what goes into it. So we have to understand that every aspect of our life is affected by politics. So until we start having conversations like that more often and more regularly, and especially to the young minds, then I think that's part of the barrier that prevents especially young people and minorities from jumping in and seeing the advantage. Justin also spoke to the makeup of the body of politicians, and I often tell people, when you look at the 90% ratio of dominance where it comes to the white males and the men that hold the political office, you look at wealth. It's oftentimes that same equivalency as the white male. And so we have to be engaged and if we want to change our socioeconomic status, it starts with politics, quite frankly. So we have to be more engaged in that arena. So I think connecting the two and making it more inviting and more relative to our daily lives would reduce the barriers. That's my opinion. So.
If I could go right off that, I feel definitely, I think the big thing about politics is when people bring up politics either at the dinner table or you're in class with a bunch of friends and you bring up politics, immediately the room tenses up and nobody wants to talk about it. Or you'll get a glance from across the table from your grandma like, what do you say? Who do you think you are? It should become more of a regular conversation of our daily lives. Like, we should be able to have conversations with each other, but not in such a negative way where we feel like I'm going to get in an argument with you. I can't talk to you about this. I almost lost some friends just because I expressed my views all of a sudden. I had a friend tell me, I don't think I can be friends with you anymore because I am conservative or because I express my political views. But it shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't determine our friendships or our family ties off of politics. It should be a regular conversation of our daily lives.
I would add, for me in Maple Heights, it's fear, hopelessness, and poverty. It's very expensive to run for mayor. It's very expensive. 22,000 people. And when you don't have the name, I didn't have a name in politics. My father died 6 months before I took office. But I was able to finish because he left me a little money. People don't write checks. And so to run, so how do you pay for the signage, pay your volunteers? How do you do that? Buy marketing material, I had t-shirts, sweatshirts, but how do you do that? Fundraisers, 5 people show up. And so people are, it's not as expensive as people think, but it is expensive. You've got to have a decent income to do that. The hopelessness, when I campaigned for 14 months, there was so much apathy. People had just given up. We'd gone through the recession in Maple Heights. Most people are underwater. They owe more than their home is worth. I have a $10 million property tax delinquent in Maple Heights, $10 million. And the city's in fiscal emergency. And that happens when your general fund goes in a deficit and the auditor says, you know what, you can't pay your bills. And so people are dealing with the fear of how many more months before the tax guy comes and I'm out of a home. And fear of the establishment. There's not a diverse, I don't have, and I'll get slammed, but I'll clarify it. I don't have I'm the safety director, so the police and fire report to me. I don't have a diverse police force. I have 2 African Americans, and I have no diversity on my fire department. There's a fear of the establishment. So for Maple Heights, it is hopelessness, it is fear, and it's poverty that keep them from getting involved.
And that carries over to, I don't know if many of you remember the last couple of elections, there were billboards in cities that were put up that said, you will be arrested if you show up at a polling place and aren't properly vetted, and that you're not appropriate for your polling site, and billboards of fear to scare people into staying away from the polling sites. There's that rhetoric that runs through that amplifies the fear, the results of poverty in communities. And again, when we don't see ourselves in representation, I serve in a body, the General Assembly is made up of 132 representatives and senators total. We have 20% are represented by women. 20% in 2018. That is a shocking number to me. And that is a number that needs to change, which is why I'm always happy to be in front of young people, because I want to encourage you not to wait as long as I did to run for office, and to help be that change that we want to see. But if we don't see ourselves, it makes a difference. When I ran for office, and I was often told I couldn't win because of who my family is, because of who my partner is, I refuse to accept that. So part of pushing back is hearing some of those things and having to move beyond them, having to move beyond the naysayers, figuring out how to do more with less money, and all the things that we have to do to have representation from minority groups. But the other thing I knew was that if you don't have a seat at the table, you can be pretty sure that you may be on the menu. And so it is so important to be in the room, at the table, and have a voice. And that makes a difference. In states across the country, LGBT policies changed only when there was an openly gay or lesbian person serving in their legislature. On my watch, for the past 8 years, we have not passed anti-LGBT laws in the state of Ohio. I feel very good about that, and I'm trying to move the needle and pass a pro-LGBT policy right now. But it doesn't happen unless people who have the experience, who are representative of the group, are in the room.
So it seems like a lot of the conversation today talked about the barriers that stand in the way of people entering politics as minorities. So how do you guys recommend those barriers can be broken down so minorities can have more stable access?
I think a big a barrier is more of a psychological barrier. As just women looking at, for example, I don't know, the presidential election, there was our very first woman running for office. And I feel like the big thing is if we don't see somebody who represents us running, then we ourselves will not run. It's kind of like chicken and an egg. If the chicken doesn't lay the egg, then the chicken doesn't exist. I don't know, things like that. But I think a big thing is if I were to see a woman have a larger role in office, maybe I would also believe that I can also have a larger role in office. And it's the same thing for other minorities. It's definitely more, I feel like it's a big psychological barrier that we have.
I think it's grassroots. It started with me working with the schools, volunteering, working on the levy campaign, and seeing what's behind the scenes, and truly moving the propaganda out of the way, and really having a personal experience on what the issues are. It's being a engaged member of your community, because you're engaged, you will see. As boring as it might be, or overly complex, as Representative County Councilperson Brown shared, going to the council meetings. You need to know what's going on in your community. It also is faith. It's understanding, and I'm not here to preach, but I have to just be honest with who I am. It's truly being in touch with whatever your spiritual base is, and always seeking guidance from a higher power of what your purposeful life is. We were all born to lead a purposeful life and do important work. No one was put on earth to just breathe the air. And so what's that purpose? Not everybody is going to be a politician or a mayor, but I don't care what, and you have a gift. You'll hear this if you go to work. What's your gift? If it's singing for the person running for office at a campaign fundraiser, you're the headliner to help him or her raise money. But it's grassroots. And sometimes we dismiss the grassroots. We all start in some kind of volunteer, kind of concerned citizens way. I can tell you, if you listen close enough and stay engaged close enough and get really into the details, you will be moved. It will incite you to do something about it, because sometimes you'll just get darn right mad. I got to get mad, and I got disgusted of people saying that my city, because it was turning black, was no longer any good, and I still face that every day. There's a website in Maple that says, remember when Maple Heights is, and they're talking about, remember when it was white. It's no longer good. I worked at Deloitte & Touche, and I worked for an attorney, and my husband and I would get together every other quarter. He lives in Strongsville, and they would provide the dinner, and we would bring the dessert. And after dessert one night, he said, let's go for a walk. We went for a walk. Well, he had picked out a house for me, because he said, I gotten a big raise and promotion. He said, you need to move out of Maple Heights. You make enough money now because I just gave your promotion and a raise to move. He picked a house for me down the street from him in Strongsville, because there was something wrong with the person that reached a certain level of success and a certain level of income. Not that I make a lot of money, I don't want to get you that impression, but enough money to choose a zip code that I now had to move. It was no longer good enough. And I said, I am fine living with people that look like me. I'd feel like a fish out of water in Strongsville. There's nothing wrong with Strongsville. But I like diversity. There's Indians on my street, because there's a mosque in Bedford. There's a lot of diversity. But the belief was that I should move immediately to Strongsville, because Maple Heights was known. And it made me mad. It got me mad in the school system. My daughter graduated, I had to brag a little bit. 2016 is a valedictorian. She's pre-law. She's at Ohio State, 4.0 GPA. She's a resident assistant with 41 residents. And everybody kept saying, take her out of Maple Heights schools. Send her to Hathaway Brown, send her to Beaumont. And I'm a Villa Angela graduate, because I grew up in the Glenville area on Thornhill Drive, up 105 and 120th and St. Clair. You got to get her out of me. She'll never make it. She's a full scholarship. She's going to Morocco, and she's going to France in May to study abroad. And she's got 4 offers to work at any law firm she wants as an intern. Your zip code shouldn't dictate your education, nor should your zip code dictate your quality of life. You sometimes got to get fighting mad and get so disgusted that you will stand up, the state rep said, and said, you know what, I'm the one to fix it. If you're going to come to me and talk about Maple Heights, probably not a good idea. I believe in that city. I believe in the people, and we're just as good as anybody else. And that was enough to get me going, to go out there for 14 months, put myself under intense criticism and scrutiny, which I still face. The insults are unrelenting, but I still believe.
I think I would also add, and I think the message there, in another way, is just believing in yourself. Don't let other people define you. Don't let your circumstances define you. I think that is the summary of what all of us, the common thread of all of us that are sitting before you. We weren't discouraged by the naysayers. We did not let our circumstances say, okay, I don't have enough money, or I don't look like the average politician. I can't do this. There was a certain level of confidence and faith that afforded us to step out on faith and do what it is that we're doing. So that would be what I would encourage young people, especially, to use as something to remove barriers. There are no barriers. Just tell yourself that there are no barriers. You can do what it is that you set your mind to. It might require a little bit more work. It will require a little bit of sacrifice. It's going to require time. I think everyone up here can honestly say, we don't look like what we've been through. Okay, so people see the reward, the fruits of our labor, but they don't see the work that went into the gardening, if you will. They didn't see when we planted the seed and had to do some pruning, like cutting the leaves or digging and toiling the soil and watering the seed and those type of things. It takes work. You have to be committed to the process, and you are not going to succeed at every turn. You are going to have some disappointments. You are going to have some failures. You are going to have those things that feel like barriers, but they can be stumbling blocks or stepping stones. That's up for you to decide. So that is what I would leave you with as far as barriers are concerned.
And following through on that, we have a game we play around the table. At the dinner table, in terms of when we talk about an issue or a problem or a challenge someone in our family has, what's the worst that could happen? What is the absolute worst that could happen? And so we talk about it, we look at it, and then we say, well, I can deal with that. What can we do to prepare for if that's the worst? And 9 times out of 10, the worst doesn't happen, but it's good to be prepared for it. Failure, as our chairwoman said, is absolutely a good teacher sometimes. My mother always told me it built character. I said, well, I am the biggest character that's ever been around because I've experienced some failure. But it's what you do with it afterwards, I think, that makes such a difference. And in the political realm, I think the most important thing, whether you're volunteering on a campaign, whether you're registering and voting, educating yourself on the issues, whether you're involved in your community, all of those things, wherever you find yourself, whatever speaks to you to work on, to do, be the best registered voter. Be the best volunteer. Be the best that you can be. Your community will benefit from your work, but you have no idea what it gives you in return. I am from a family, I was the first one to go to college, the first one to graduate from college. My family said, if you can figure out how to do it, good luck with that. And I figured out how to do it. But there is a legacy there in my community and in my family, because my nieces and nephews are following suit now, that makes such a difference, that my children followed as well. So for me, it's been a wonderful journey that I've benefited from as I've been serving my community.
All right, a round of applause for our panelists today. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiolu Orasanya. I'm a senior in high school and the president of the City Club's Youth Forum Council. We're about to begin the audience Q&A. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, students, or those of you joining us via our webcast. We ask that your questions be brief, to the point, and actual questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Today we are enjoying a Youth Forum panel discussion on underrepresented identities in politics, featuring Nikki Antonio, State Representative for Ohio House District 13, Annette Blackwell, the Mayor of Maple Heights, Shontel Brown, County Council Representative for District 9, and Tiffany Roberts, President of Turning Point USA at Cleveland State University. Our moderator today is Youth Forum Council Member Millen Jane. Holding the microphones today is Youth Council Member Rosamond Dorsey. I think she's standing over there. May we have the first question, please?
Hi, I'm Sam Lee. I'm a sophomore at Hawkins School, and I was just wondering, how can high schoolers help address the minority representation in politics issue? Like, how can high schoolers specifically help?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. When I first ran for city council, I felt pretty much alone, but I was talking to people, and one day I got a call from a high school student who said they had just formed a Lakewood High School Democrat group, and they wanted to talk to me. They came to my house, they interviewed me, because they wanted to see if I met their standards And if I did, they were going to work on my campaign. That group of high school students knocked doors with me all summer long, and I really believe that part of the reason why I won that first campaign was because of that group of high school students. I don't know what they had in them to get up every Saturday morning and for a couple of hours come out and knock on doors with me, but they did it faithfully. And they were enthusiastic, they were excited, they went on to work on other campaigns. I mean, they were amazing. So I think it's asking yourself, what speaks to me, either a candidate or an issue, where can I plug in? There is a place for you as a high school student.
Absolutely, I would agree. Totally. If your school does not have a club, I would form a club in your school and find a campaign and get on it and volunteer. I can assure you, candidates will not turn you down. There is nothing more valuable to a candidate than the enthusiasm of youth. It is contagious, and your participation on campaigns just is so exciting. I had the same experience in 2014 where I had a larger race to run, and so the help that I received from Shaker School students was invaluable. So if you don't have a club in your local high school, I would challenge you to try to start one. And then look for a candidate in your local community, or one that it doesn't even have to necessarily be in your backyard, but one that speaks to you. If you find someone here that you say, you know what, I'd like to help you run next time, that would be my advice.
I will add, I'm very lucky. My daughter was a senior in high school when I ran, and she ran around and found out who's going to turn 18, and she got everyone registered to vote. And then it was the football team, it was the wrestling team. They all helped me canvass 5.4 square miles, same thing. They came to me because they were excited about the candidate. And I looked like them, they felt like they knew me. My son played football, then my daughter was in the band, and so everybody felt like they knew, and they wanted to help Sion mom or Devin's mom win. So to just piggyback, they're interested in the candidate. There's something about the candidate that moves them, or the cause might use them. But if you have a relation, if you have kids in the school, it's kind of easy. If you don't have kids in the school, but if you volunteer and you are at their games and you work the concession stand and you're respectful to them and they see you as a person they respect and they like and they want to help, they will do that. But I had a little help there.
And I know definitely, since you're a high school student, I'm not too far from that either, but I know definitely in high school I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I kind of still don't, but you'll figure it out eventually. I got so involved that freshman year I was in 5 organizations, all different, like a cappella group, eventually Turning Point, I do boxing, like it's all over the place. But definitely get involved. That's probably the best advice I can give you. I was also very involved in high school, and on more of a personal side, I'm not very interested in the candidacy side, which you guys all do. I really enjoy the more of the policy side and learning more about what is a core foundation of politics and things like that. And I definitely find that more interesting than going out and campaigning. So if that's something you're more interested in, then you can find something that goes along that lines and maybe start a Turning Point chapter or something. But definitely get involved. That's the best advice I can give you.
Hi again, my name is Kamaya Smith, and I have a question about I know that certain high schools are low funded. Some of the student body is inner city. So, and compared to another school that's private and highly funded, and all of the students are from wealthy parents, how can we come together from a low income student body to a wealthy student body and have a productive conversation and civic duty and engagement?
I would say this is the first step, getting involved in these kind of discussions. My daughter was on Congressman Marcia Fudd's Youth Advisory Council. She also was on the advisory council for Mike DeWine. Maple Heights is not an affluent community. You'll see them right there. Some would say that we're no different than Cleveland. The poverty level is significant, and there's single-family-led homes and the challenges. But I will say the school and your elected officials, I work very closely with the schools. And sometimes it takes the teachers reaching out, but students reach out. I've had one of them here. Two of them were summer interns in my office, or was it three of you? Two. They followed me around all the time. And they tell me what they need. And so sometimes you initiate the dialogue, kind of follow up to what was just said, getting involved. But there's so many groups that will, and offices and positions and forms like this that will allow you to come in, and then it doesn't matter. Then it becomes about the work you're doing. It doesn't matter what school, because you're all on this youth advisory group, or you're all from different groups here, and we're talking Solon and Cleveland. So it's happening here, but being as engaged and involved as you are, and you have to seek them out. The internet's a great thing. I won't say Google, as my daughter said, everything's not Google. So the internet's a great thing to find out, and then challenge your guidance counselors, challenge your faith community to find out where those opportunities are. And you'd be surprised how the school wants to help you. Because sometimes there's an application or essay, they're usually all free, but where you are right now, just do this, multiply this like 6 times, join as much as you can, take on internships, and get on the advisory groups, and you'll be surprised. That dialogue happens because it doesn't matter what zip code you're from or what economic background, you all are looking for justice and opportunity and and removing barriers, and many things you'll find are similar. My daughter struggled when she went to Ohio State because she was in the honors program, and she said, people make fun of me because I came from Maple Heights. I'm going to show them. Well, it's almost her 3rd year. She's doing just as well. But it became less and less about where you came from, about what do you bring to the school. That happens by you being true to who you are, being the best you are every place you go. Not letting where you come from or your income level. I'm the only woman, black female mayor. I am the only black female mayor in Cuyahoga County right now. It's just me. It's always just me. It doesn't bother me because I worked hard, the people put me there, and I think I'm pretty smart. And if I don't know, I'll figure it out. But here's the great thing. What I don't know, someone will whisper and tell me, or send me a note, or she'll text me, or someone will call me what I don't know. People will lift you up in places you have no idea they'll lift you up.
And you know, there's a little exercise I started doing before I got to the legislature, but I grew up on the west side of Cleveland, West 90th, and it's not an affluent part of the community at all. It was rough then, it's rougher now. And every opportunity, pushing, and I love that Mayor Blackwell said that about pushing your counselors and the folks who are your resources to connect you with those opportunities. When I first started, I think I started it at City Council, but definitely in the legislature. You know, I was used to walking into a room and expecting that people were going to be surprised I was there, either because I didn't belong there because of my economic level. My high school guidance counselor told me the best I could do was maybe go to Tri-C and become a secretary. It wasn't because of my skills. My grades were good. It was because of my income level, and he knew the economic standing of my family. And that's why he was counseling me that way. I had to push back on that, but every time I get ready to do something big, I find a mirror somewhere, and I look at myself and I say, you belong here. You belong here, wherever it is that I'm walking into. And there's a part of me that isn't quite sure whether I belong there or not, but I am convinced that I'm gonna convince myself that I belong there, and I'm gonna convince everyone else of that as well. And I think when you do that, and when you push for those opportunities into those places that maybe somebody didn't think maybe you wanted to be, you belong there.
I agree. I would just echo their sentiments. And as a person who comes from a product of Cleveland Public Schools, I graduated from John Adams High School, class of '93. Hey. So I understand what it is that you mean, and I think the answer to that, as everyone has said, is involvement. You know, I was on the basketball team. I played volleyball. That exposes you to different different communities, because you're traveling to different games. You get to see different things, different type of clubs, whether it's drama or things like that that afford you exposure right from your own high school. So get involved in as many clubs as you can. Push the leaderships to find those resources, utilize the internet. But again, I cannot tell you, listening to these stories right now, I feel incredibly blessed that my mom instilled, both of my parents instilled in me the confidence where I walked in the room, whether I didn't know better to know whether or not I didn't belong. I just always felt like I belonged. You know, I'm just like, hey, I'm here. What's up? What's going on? You know, so, you know, I've never really had that burden, if you will, despite my background. And like I said, coming from John Adams' class of '93, we were far from affluent, and we were working poor still. And so I don't let other people's labels or expectations or impressions define me. I know who I am, and I know that I am just as capable as anybody else of achieving anything I put my mind to. So don't let your circumstances define you. If I leave you with nothing else in this room today, do not let your circumstances, and don't let someone who appears to have more make you feel like you have less, because we all bring something great to the table. We have all, as Mayor Blackwell indicated, been created for a purpose, and that we bring something of value. And so learn what that is about yourself, and shine and walk with pride and hold your head up high, because you belong in every room that you come into. If you didn't, you wouldn't be in the room.
I agree with all three of them. They all know so much more than I do. But I mean, even though you're just a high school student, you can do so much as a high school student. All of your opportunities are all right in front of you. You just got to go for them. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Autumn Faith Walker. I really enjoyed the forum, and I'm excited for my question. Bear with me, it's kind of complicated, but in keeping with creating a reflective and maintaining a reflective democracy, I know once you make a conscious decision to go into politics and become a political figure, you're probably faced with a lot of conflict and a lot of difficult decisions. You have a lot of demands from multiple parties, and you want to stay true to who you are and where you came from. So my question is for all of you, because I think this can even apply on the college level, and even if you're president, you know, at any level, how do you stay grounded, and how do you make sure that the decisions that you're making are true to what you believe is right, even when it's difficult?
I have to say that I don't go to work and leave my faith and my conscience at home. I take my faith and conscience with me. I deal in facts, and I try to divorce myself from emotions, because the belief is that I'm emotional, that I make decisions with emotion. I have an entirely male police force and fire, so I try to leave that because they thought that, but I listen to facts. And it really is because my faith and my beliefs shape who I am. Every single time I stick with that, I can live with any decision that I make. I can live with it, and I'm very strong about it. I explain when necessary, and I don't bother to explain when it's not necessary. But usually people, when they get to know you and you're consistent, and you're dealing with people, know the truth and the right thing before they come to you. There is some time and effort for you to compromise. And people will say, oh, you said that because you're a woman, or you said that because you're black. The first 6 months I was called a racist all the time because I talked about diversity on my police force. So my police turned on me initially because I was this racist. I gave an interview and I said that, because someone asked me about the Tamir Rice and all that was happening. What are you going to do? I have 2 black sons. You have 2 black sons, and you're a woman. What are you going to do about all of these white policemen killing our children? I mean, you're black. And I said, at the end of the day, there are 2 people trying to get home. The person stopped is trying to get home, and the policeman is trying to get home. There's an amount of respect that each must have. So if the police tell you to get out of the car and put your hands up, get out of the car and put your hands up. Because if you don't, then there's sometimes a fear. So there's respect here. So the right answer is do the right thing. And if you are stopped by a police, follow the rules. And the police know from the top, I'm safety director, because I will not stand for anything else. If there are complaints of police conduct, we have a conversation. We have a very strong conversation. And if it ends up being termination, I'm going to be on the right side because I am someone's mother, I am someone's wife, I am someone's daughter. And I am a person of faith and integrity and ethics. I have to like myself at the end of the day, and I'll deal with the drama. I stay true to who I am as I take my faith and I take my just my ethics and what I believe with me to work every single day, and I operate from there. And I can sleep at night most days. You know, when the phone's ringing at 3 or 4 because the police chief is texting me saying, you know, we've got a situation. But for the peaceful sleep, I have that because I believe, when I believe I've made the right decision, I can only rule from a place of what I know. If it gets complicated, then of course, I mean, there's resources I need to reach out to. And then I come back with the best decision, with the best information.
Same for me. Your faith, your integrity, being fair, consistent. For me, when you're challenged with the difficult decisions, I will not sit up here and try to pretend like I have all the answers. I get a lot of feedback, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. And then you sift through it and discern from there, and you trust you trust the decision that you're making is something that is based on what you know is for the greater good of the people. I think oftentimes what happens with elected officials is that we forget that we're public servants. We're here to serve the people. The people you aren't here to serve us. So we are here to serve you. This is a duty. It is a call. It is a responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so when you keep that humility and you keep that at the forefront of your thinking, what is best for the people? What can I do for the people? And for the greater good of the people, then you're able to maintain both. And sometimes you do come to a place where you might have to separate your faith from the Constitution, because if the roles were reversed and there were perhaps a different majority of religion and leadership, you wouldn't want them to impose their faith beliefs on you. So you have to respect that. But we are a country of diversity, so we respect diversity. We respect different people's beliefs, and so you don't force that on people. So you have to make sure that you are respectful of others and making decisions that will, again, be impactful for the greater good of the whole. And if you do that, like my sister, Mayor Blackwell over here, you sleep good at night.
And it takes, as someone mentioned, discernment. Yes. You did. And it's okay to take a breath before making a decision. I had to learn that the hard way. I think that we are bombarded with, people want us to make decisions in an instant sometimes. And what I realized very early was sometimes it's okay to take a breath, to wait, to give time to think, to take in everything that's coming at us, as you pointed out. I mean, your question is a wonderful question because we're faced with this all the time. And then to be able to go back to who am I, what are my foundational beliefs, who am I at the core? My faith practice says that I believe in the dignity and worth of every individual that's put in front of me. It doesn't make a distinction between party. I have to look at everyone who's in front of me the exact same way. Sometimes I repeat that to myself as I have someone in front of me who is reminding me that is how I have decided to be in the world. And I thank them for giving me the opportunity to practice when it's a little tense sometimes. In that moment, then, I can go back to whether it's my vote that I have to think about, as Chairwoman Brown said, it is that what is this for the good of the people? What does this vote do? And is it consistent? Am I being consistent with my core beliefs? And why people sent me to be their voice? Am I doing the best job that I can be to represent their voice? I am not ever going to make everybody happy. We can't. That is not the job that we've been given. We have not been given the job to please everyone. We have been given the job to use everything that we have, to listen as clearly as we can to the people that send us there, and then to make decisions and make the best decisions we believe are the right way to go for the most people. And at the end of the day, that is the best that we can do. And we have to be good to ourselves when we've made those decisions and just move forward.
One challenge I came across going from high school to college is, in high school you have 4 years and you just kind of want to get out. You just want to get it over with. You want to go to college, you want your independence. And so finally I went to college, I have all this independence, and I start thinking on my own instead of thinking whatever I learned in high school, and now I'm getting involved. And one challenge I came across was when I was starting to become the president of my chapter. I had people anonymously, I can't say that word, go on social media and bash me for being a woman, and it drove me crazy because these are the people who, I don't know, they always talk about, oh, like we want a woman to be president, things like that, but then I become a president and they start bashing me for being a woman, saying, oh, you only got this because you did this, and extremely inappropriate. And I think that was a challenge to like my confidence as becoming and getting this role and being in charge of this entire chapter. And what I learned is that all those nasty comments I've heard from people, from my fellow students, is instead of taking that to heart, which I should be using it as my motivation for going forward. Anytime I question myself or I think back to those times when people said things, I just remember, I'm like, the reason why I'm getting hatred from other people is because I'm doing something right. I'm making a change. I'm trying to do something that somebody doesn't like, so that means I'm doing something right. That's just the biggest thing. If you are unmotivated, use that as your motivation.
Yes, very good.
Thank you, speakers. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isha Lele, and I'm a senior at Hathaway Brown School and the secretary of the Youth Forum Council this year. Today at the City Club, we have been enjoying a youth forum on underrepresented identities in politics. Today's forum is sponsored by AT&T. We appreciate your continued support for our youth programming. Additionally, we welcome students from Citizens Leadership Academy, Flow Homeschool Co-op, Maple Heights High School, and Solon High School's Girls Up leadership team. We thank you all for being here today. If you enjoyed today's forum, join us on February 8th at noon for another youth forum discussing the rise of the #MeToo movement. And that brings us to the end of today's forum. Thank you, Representative Antonio, Mayor Blackwell, Representative Brown, and Ms. Roberts. Thank you, Millen, for moderating, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream are made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Robert Conrad, Cleveland State University, the Chautauqua Institution, the Cleveland Clinic, and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland Incorporated.